Good morning. Happy Labor Day, everyone. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily, presented by La Berge Casino. Ronnie Rance, Tommy Krysan with you. What a different feel it is this Labor Day versus the last five. The Tigers are 1-0. And not only are they 1-0, Tommy, they're 1-0 against a really good team. I think Clemson's going to, do what Clemson does, maybe drop a couple games, but still be representing the ACC when the time comes. Um, and the Tigers are 1-0, feeling really good about themselves, waiting on all the polls to see where they end up. North Carolina's got to play today. Bill Belichick making his debut. But a lot of people have expectations that LSU might vault all the way into the top five based on that win on the road in Clemson and other teams losing, like Texas and Alabama and others. But what a win. It's a totally different feeling. Garrett Nussmeier got to be, he went into that game, Tommy, second, third in the Heisman Trophy uh, favorite category. And with Arch Manning doing what he did and losing on the road at Ohio State, Nussmeier going to a 28 of 38, I believe, and getting a win on the road without a turnover. Throwing a touchdown pass. I got to think Garrett Nussmeier probably first or second in the Heisman balloting after week one.
He moved up to first, according to Hunter McCann. I saw a post that he made. And, he played the best this weekend of the guys who were in that top three, four, five. Lenore Sells of South Carolina. Well, he made some really nice plays, and he didn't have a great game. So I think Nussmeier's there. And both polls will come out tomorrow, with today being Labor Day. They do that every year. Brian Kelly's press conference is not till tomorrow. Normally it's on a Monday. So we'll see what happens there. And, of course, the Tigers home opener this Saturday night. 37.5-point favorites over Louisiana Tech, who shut out Southeastern this past weekend. So college football, what a weekend. It kind of started with Lee Corso. Man, what a celebration that was. The band spelling Corso on the field. I thought that was cool. And, he went 6-0. He's never been undefeated, including picking Florida State. And then he said LSU would win the national championship. Boy, it went out. Let's hope he's 7-0, right? Instead of 6-0. But that was a special thing. I watched all of it. And you made a point a minute ago before we roll the camera here. Fox, simulcasted the putting of the headgear thing on. That's big. I mean, that's the power of Lee Corso and the fact they knew that could maybe move their needle a little bit with that. So it was a special day for him. 90 years old, and had his family there on the set. It was a special day for him, special day for LSU, and a scratch your head day for a bunch of teams and a bunch of players. But as every coach said, Ryan, it's a long season. There's a lot of football left to be played. We could say that today. And, it was a fun weekend. I watched a ton of football, including yesterday and last night. I'm going to take a peek at Belichick in North Carolina tonight, see how they do. They're a couple of point underdogs at TCU, 3.5 actually. So what a weekend of college football. You had the surprises and the upsets, then you had the teams you thought would look good. But Ronnie, you were in Clemson. This LSU football team played a pretty darn good football game. Offense, defense, special teams, Nussmeier, Cade Durham, he's not the tallest guy, but man, he runs really good and hard. And then the defense under Blake Baker was just everywhere. A lot to be. They affected the quarterback. Or the new word now, they made the quarterback uncomfortable all night. That's the buzzword now. And Klubnik's a good quarterback. He could be among the finalists for the Heisman, depending on what happens going forward. But LSU wanted to be 1-0, and they are 1-0.
Before we get to talking LSU Clemson, I want to talk something about Lee Corso for a minute. I think over 3 million people viewed it. It was the last couple of weeks. ESPN did a fantastic job sort of highlighting his career, honoring him, giving him his flowers, building up to where they had tremendous viewership. They did the college game day inside the stadium at Ohio State. So, I mean, right there, kickoff at 11 o'clock. I mean, he makes his headgear pick live in the stadium. They carried it on the PA amongst the 100,000 people. And of course, he puts on the Buckeye headgear. It's funny to see the new Buckeye headgear versus the first one he ever put on back 38 years ago. 30 years ago that was all bunched up and squished, and they didn't really want him to use the headgear. They had to make multiple calls that week to let, hey, please, please, please. Kirk Herbstreit's wife, former cheerleader at Ohio State, finally got somebody over there to let him put the headgear on. They did it reluctantly, and there were actually some schools back in the day, Tommy, who didn't let them do the headgear. In those first couple of years, it still wasn't like, oh yeah, no brainer. I mean, now schools are begging Lee Corso, right, to wear their headgear. But originally, it was like, nah, you can't. The mascot headgear is sacred, and so he went with some alternate routes. But to see that first Buckeye headgear to the last one, it was pristine and fluffy, and it was really pretty funny. But Ohio State took care of business. Lee Corso, they did a great job on that last show, and I mean, I don't think it can be understated how big of a deal it was that Fox and ESPN carried the end of the broadcast on each other's network at the same time. First, ESPN had to allow that to happen, and two, Fox had to understand that even though we got a rival show, this guy is the one that built the whole morning college game day experience. The whole, I mean, Fox goes on the campuses and does the same thing, not to the same amount of crowds, obviously, but that was pretty incredible. That shows the power and the respect and the love that people have for Lee Corso, that these two superpowers that hate each other could work together on that. Um, Let's get to LSU Clemson. First off, got in there on Saturday. It was a beautiful day. I mean, what a great day. I mean, the weather couldn't have been any better. Had they played that game in Baton Rouge, it'd have been much hotter. It wouldn't have been as nice. It didn't get above, I think, 85 the whole time there, or maybe late upper 80s, but the humidity was low. I mean, it was a perfect day for football. I want to say the town and the location of the state is my first time to Clemson, South Carolina. A little bit of hills to it, walking around in the town. I guess similar feel to like maybe if LSU was playing at Auburn, maybe in the sense that, not too far of a walk from the stadium to some bars and restaurants and hotels and things, or some little boutique hotels. But yet not easy getting in and out. I think Auburn probably a little easier getting out, more options as far as roads to get out. The traffic was pretty brutal after the game. Took about an hour to get from the stadium to the interstate to go back to Atlanta. Um, but it was a really neat atmosphere there. I definitely don't think orange is a flattering color for women. I think the gold, the purple, the white, much cuter color on the women's outfits. And look, this was a game. Quite honestly, if you're a Clemson fan, as much as LSU says, well, that we had that touchdown pass that was called an incomplete pass that we all thought was going to put LSU up a couple of scores, and it didn't. And then, of course, the missed field goal, and then you only win by 7. But on this Clemson side, there's a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda. They dropped some balls, including that faded pass down the numbers that would have been about a 40-yard completion late in the game. Pressure, but it went right between his two hands, and there was some drops. There was some mistakes that Clemson made. I thought this was a heavyweight fight, which is the way Dabo Sweeney called it after the game, the heavyweight fight between two good teams. And, they made a couple more plays than we did. And I think that's really true. I think it wasn't a blowout. It wasn't a LSU dominated Clemson. I thought they dominated the second half, relatively speaking. But the first half, you got to give to Clemson. And just a heck of a game. And look, this was the kind of game, Tommy, that I didn't care how pretty it was, what the score was. If LSU could get out of there with a half a point victory, you take it.
I agree completely. And, you always talk about halftime adjustments. LSU went to the locker room down 10-3, and shut them out in the second half, even though their defense played really well in the first half. So, the buzz nationally and locally certainly has been the defense, Blake Baker, all the transfer guys, and Harold Perkins being more, back to the old Harold Perkins maybe. So you had a lot of that stuff going on. And again, it's, Clemson's a good football team. Sweeney said last week they were going to be the first team to go 16-0. Well, that's not going to happen. But if you're an LSU fan, you want them to win their next 11 games because that'll strengthen your self in the picture should you stumble somewhere along the way. But Ross Dellinger's got LSU number 1 in his top 10. Now, that's not the AP or the coaches poll. And Ross actually worked for the Advocate for a piece of time. So, he's respected nationally, and some of the power rankings Saturday down south got LSU top team in the power rankings of the SEC. I don't think they're going to. I think Ohio State will be number one in the nation because they beat number one.
And they're
Okay,
defending national champs.
yeah, so
You
I
know?
think they're going to be number one without question. I think LSU's at 4 or 5, just depending on how all the voting goes, and could be different in each poll. And the polls don't matter as much today as they will later, but it still gives you something to talk about. And they got to turn the page. This win's over. They're 1-0. That was their goal. They're there. They got to be 1-0 again this Saturday when they got Louisiana Tech coming into town, and it's a big line, 37.5 point favorite for LSU. Like we said earlier, Tech beat Southeastern 24-0 this last weekend. So LSU will move on. You have to forget Clemson and forget everything that happened and go get it done again.
Um, let's talk about one thing though that uh, if you kick the field goal right before half, you win by 10. I mean, what is it with Brian Kelly and not kicking field goals in the first half of the first game of the year? This is 3 years in a row now that his stubbornness cost LSU points and make this game, quite frankly, closer than it needed to be. You had an opportunity right before the half to kick a very makeable field goal and be down 10-6. And instead, he goes for it with no timeouts left. So here's the thing that I don't understand in that situation. It's not, if you're going to, he goes for it right there, gets the first down. Okay, clock starts before they reset the chains, then you got to pretty much spike it. So my point is that you probably only get maybe one more play before you got to kick a field goal anyway. The likelihood that you're going to end up kicking a field goal is pretty damn high, even if you make that first down. Late in the first half. So I mean, it's just I don't. They ended up winning a game, but I mean, again, you could have had a little easier run there in the second half. You could have had some breathing room there. You wouldn't have been sweating Clemson there at the very end if you just take the points, Tommy. I don't understand all these new analytics. They've redone the game of football. The 100 years that the game's been played, now people don't take field goals when you're supposed to. I don't understand it, especially the first game of the year and the first half. I get it in the fourth quarter. Maybe that you look at the chart. But until the fourth quarter, Tommy, just tack it on. Just tack it on, especially chip shot field goals.
Well, like they say, the first half, take all the points you can get, and then you don't go for two until you're in the fourth quarter, and the chart tells you to do it. But the other thing I noticed this weekend, Ronnie, all weekend long, so many teams going for it on fourth down on their own 34, their own 38, whatever. And that's the analytics driving that because they're thinking if it's 4th and 1, the odds of us gaining a yard and a half are strong. Okay, but Auburn did it the other night. I mean, Ohio State did it, Texas did it. Everybody was doing that. South Carolina, Virginia Tech, they both did it on both of their first possessions of the night. So I mean, it's a little bit different. But I'm like you, game kind of rolled for about 100 years or so. Why change it? But I agree, Kelly should have took the field goal. And I don't think he'll admit that tomorrow at his presser, or maybe he will. I don't know, but no, I just believe in, especially on the road, get those points. Put them up on the. I know you don't want field goals, scoring field goals instead of touchdowns to get you beat. I get it, but get the points on the road.
I don't know. Your mama told you when you were a kid, but I know Mama Rance said, "I don't care what everybody else does. I don't care what if everybody else jumps off a bridge. You're going to jump off the bridge. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's this monkey see, monkey do mentality. Well, remember it all started with that high school coach in Arkansas. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
the,
Like
the
10 years
goal.
ago, nobody did this crap. Okay. Then they had that high school coach in Arkansas who coached at a small level school, won all these games, won all these state championships, and he never punted. He always kicked onside kicks. Remember, he did all. He got national attention. Coaches from all over the country started taking pilgrimages to go visit with him and watch film and go learn about it. And now it's just it's trickled in. Those analytics that you should never punt have trickled in, and now you're seeing these big programs starting to do a lot of that crap. man, this isn't Arkansas 1A football. I mean, come on, man. Like the
Well,
idea that, there's some analytics out there that says you never punt or you always go for it on fourth down. That's malarkey. I would love to, we need to get like somebody smarter than you and I to keep track of these the goofball decisions that coaches are making and see how they work.
Well, I mean, it's tough when you're on the sidelines and got to make that decision. You know, Deion Sanders, poor clock management the other night in the Colorado game. All these coaches, I mean, it's tough. You think when you got 20 other guys on the sidelines, coaches and all that stuff, that you can come up with the right decision, even though the time is limited. It's easy sitting on the sofa. It's easy sitting in the stands like you were to say, okay, I think you should do this. But when you got to make that call, and them 11 players are asking you, Coach, what are we doing? What we got here? It's different, but I'm like you. There's a lot of goofball decisions, and I guess it goes back to, if it works, then you made a good decision. If it doesn't work, you made a bad decision. But hey, bottom line, LSU's 1-0. That was the goal, like you said. Didn't matter if they'd have won 3-2 or 2-0, but they're 1-0, and they got a lot of attention nationally, that Nussmeyer and the defense and whatnot. So we'll see how things roll forward.
Last thing on that field goal, there's not one person would have said, "What are you doing?" if you'd have just kicked the field goal and been down 10-6 at halftime. Not one. Instead, 89.6% of the people said, "What are you doing?" when you went for it. And especially, and then 100% said, "What are you doing?" when you didn't go for it, when you didn't make it. Look, LSU's defense, obviously, we've been hearing a lot of things out of camp about how much improved they are, how better they are. Obviously, they went hard in the portal, spent a lot of money thanks to Underwood leaving and going to Michigan. They freed up millions of dollars for them to go get some players, and they took advantage of that. It looks like they came out of that game relatively healthy. Obviously, banged up. There's a difference between banged up and hurt. They managed to avoid that thing, but the bottom line is that defense is real. To go over there and Klubnik on his home field, a guy who's expected to be a first round pick, a Heisman candidate, all that, and the way they pressured him, and made kind of Clemson one dimensional. Dabo Sweeney admitted, "Hey, we gave up on the run too soon," and I thought they did. They needed to try to get a little more balance because when in the second half when they LSU pinned its ears back, they were affecting just about every throw, and got pressure and get a lot of sacks, but they got a lot of pressures, and and then Harold Perkins using him the way they did in space, and then also lining him up different locations, and so that he could get to the quarterback on obvious passing downs and pressure the quarterback. That was good. It was it was impressive to see the maturation of this defense because the last couple of years it has not been good. This year, giant step forward, and the offensive line held in there, Tommy, against what's supposed to be a very good defense. Offensive line didn't dominate outside of a couple of runs that they didn't run the ball very well. I mean, only averaged 3.5 yards per carry, even with the big runs in there. With the head, I think they had to open the first run of the game. You take out that first run, the average is way down, but they hung in there, gave Nussmeyer time, did just enough against what's supposed to be a very good defense. I'm curious to see how this offensive line will continue to move on. Obviously, Louisiana Tech, you get a victory. I don't know, cover, not cover, doesn't matter. You get healthy, you kind of rest the guys, or if any guys are banged up, you play them as minimally as possible and get ready for Florida in 2 weeks. Florida, oh, by the way, didn't play anybody, but looked good.
Yeah, well, FCC went 14-2, but those that like to count up on that, and the one loss Alabama was the shocker, and we've seen all the memes and the buyout and the 70 million, and and then everybody kind of took off on a comment Herb Street made that they looked very lethargic, and guys on the sideline said the same thing. They were soft and they don't have that edge on them as once time Bama did. Now, there's a long way to go, and I don't think Bama's a bad football team, although their quarterback struggled, but he was a new guy. He hadn't played a lot. So, lots of stories, but I guess for us, it starts with LSU winning. Tulane with a big win, and I couldn't believe Northwestern didn't let Tulane wear a white Katrina tribute jersey. What are you thinking, Northwestern? I mean, you got beat by 20, okay, but even if you'd have won by 20, you still should have, like Coach Summerall said, don't disrespect New Orleans, the city, the people, the Louisiana, the South. Northwestern, shouldn't have done that, I don't think, but Tulane got a nice win.
Yeah, it's a good follow up story. I mean, they reached out to them. They wanted to wear the 20th anniversary white tops that the Tulane team wore that season back in 2005. And of course, being that you're the home team, you got to wear the dark jersey. So if you want to wear the white jersey or the light jersey, you have to get a permission from the other team. Of course, LSU fans know all about that because LSU always wears the white jerseys at home most of the time, and it's you don't mess with Superman's cape, right? The old Jim Croce song. I mean, what? There's no reason to add more fuel to the fire, right? Let sleeping dogs lie and all those sayings. I mean, instead, you wake up the fan base, you wake up the team. It's a motivation for them, and they sure didn't forget about it. And an impressive win. I mean, I don't care that Northwestern's not one of the better teams in the Big Ten. You beat a Big Ten team. That's all that matters. You beat a Big Ten team, and you're expected to be good. And you got a new quarterback, and looks like Tulane's going to be a fun team for the third year in a row.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of people talking about the coach and how good he is and the job he's done, and they've done a little better in the portal this year than they did last year. And that's another thing, Ronnie, that every kid last night in the Notre Dame game, against Miami, he's at his third school. He was here and here. He was, I mean, it's almost nauseating, but it is what it is, and you got to embrace it, or you're going to get left behind. And one kid from Miami's in his seventh year of college football due to a couple of knee injuries while he was at Rutgers. I mean, but hey, everybody got a lot of feel of college football. You get a little bit more tonight with North Carolina and TCU, Bill Belichick. And then, of course, Thursday night, the NFL gets going.
By the way, terrible start to the season for the Raging Cajuns. At home,
Uh,
$65 million hospital renovation. I mean, renovation to their stadium, um, sponsored by the hospital over there, and they lose 14-12 to Rice. But on top of that, Walker Howard gets injured on the last drive. They're down two. They get the ball back. He completes a 25-yard pass to Sampson, the former LSU Tiger, former Catholic High Bear wide receiver. All right, we're going to move the ball. We're on a roll. We can get that field goal, win this game. And he gets hurt on the play. And I don't know the extent of that injury, but he had to leave the game. And the backup came in and went 0 for 6 throwing the football. Terrible deal for the Raging Cajuns. Now they get a chance to be back at home. I actually will go to the game this Saturday. They take on the McNeese State Cowboys at home, and McNeese won against Louisiana Christian University, who is NAIA, I believe. Yeah, and LCU is NAIA, and so the game doesn't really count statistically, but they were able to kind of get that practice game, almost like a scrimmage. They dominated LCU. They'll be on the road against the Raging Cajuns, which should be, I mean, McNeese going to be coming there with a lot of confidence if Walker Howard can't play. And that's a terrible start for Walker Howard, terrible start for the Raging Cajuns. A sad story if there's that injury ends up being significant, because the Raging Cajun season could possibly be done. And oh, by the way, just so happened, Tommy, that I took the Raging Cajuns over on 7.5 wins this year. Expected Walker Howard to play, and that doesn't look good.
Well, they'll have to regroup because look, McNeese is going to come in hollering and screaming. And what, they're an hour and 10 minutes away, and they'll bring a lot of fans to Cajun Field, and it's going to be interesting. And I hope Walker Howard's injury is not serious. Even if he can't get back this week, hopefully he can return pretty soon for the Raging Cajuns.
By the way, TK, uh, me, Hunter McCann, everyone been saying take the under 57.5. That was the lock of the week. And on the LSU game. And then also I threw a little money line on the Tigers as well. So it was good good made up for the Raging Cajun loss and the two extra points that I lost from the St. Joseph, Pennsylvania, blocking two extra points against ULM to cost me a victory there earlier this week. But yes, a nice victory there, and I did load up officially for the record big on the Saints under 5.5 wins this year. I just I kind of feel like that's like the under 57.5 for LSU. I feel like it's a lock as well. I'd be stunned if the Saints got to 6 wins some kind of way.
They're not going to get to 6 wins. I talked to some people who are big Saints fans and know a lot about the organization. They're not going to get to 6 wins. It's just not going to happen. But yeah, I had I made a big bet for me on the under 57.5, so I hit that now. Full disclosure, I did bet Clemson to win the game as I picked it on radio and here on Sports Shows Daily. So I
You
got
and
that one
Matt
wrong.
Moscona. Yeah.
Yeah, but I got that one wrong. Hannah picked Clemson to win as well. So I got that one wrong, but money wise, I did good because I had a whole lot more on the under, and so that was good. And hey, football season's here.
Where did you watch the game at the Ice House in
Gulf Shores. We're at a
Gulf Shores?
table, a bunch of Baton Rouge people, a bunch of LSU fans, a bunch of other LSU fans. When LSU started doing well in the second half, what was really cool, Ronnie, is Anthony Jr. would cue up to call in Baton Rouge by Garth Brooks. As soon as they scored, the place went nuts. Everybody's
Right.
singing along but loud, okay? Because that's not that big a place. You hadn't been there yet. It's not a large place, so it was almost like you were in a stadium. It was so loud and so many people, almost shoulder to shoulder. So I was able to watch the game with a lot of good friends and a lot of good people down there in Gulf Shores.
So Big Anthony, who's a giant Alabama fan, was he in
He was
depression mode?
he was pouting the whole night
Yeah.
because he had bet big on Alabama, and of course he's a diehard Alabama. And he said it. He said they're soft. And I, used Terry Beckwith's word. There's no physicality from Bama the other day. Couldn't tackle anybody. So yeah, he didn't have as good a Saturday night as everybody else did. But
Nobody's feeling bad for him. He's had pretty
no,
good
no,
Saturdays
and
the last 20 years.
yeah, and they get in Louisiana Monroe this week, so you would think they get back on track. We'll see.
They definitely can block some kicks against them. That's for sure. All right, TK, tell us about Court Street Cafe.
Well, today's Labor Day. They're going to close at 2 o'clock, so you can come get some late breakfast or get you a lunch at Court Street Cafe in Port Allen. Go ahead and check that out today. They'll close at 2 o'clock. No dinner tonight. Rest of the week, breakfast, lunch, dinner, the Saturday night steak night, and the Sunday brunch. It's all here at Court Street Cafe in Port Allen. Hey, like and share this show. We appreciate that. Whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or X, like and share this show. That helps everybody involved. And we'll be back for more Sports Shows Daily Wednesday morning. I'll be over at Tremonti's Meat and Seafood. They appreciate everybody that came to the meat sale the other day. We'll talk more about that Wednesday. On behalf of Ronnie Rance, I'm Tommy Christ. Have a great day, everyone.